Grand Rising, all. Grand Rising. I just get out of the shower and it's a snowy day. Maybe there's a connection because the last time I did a share, it was on a snowy day. Um, but, snowy day, I'm home. I've done all the reading I'm going to do. I've watched all the movies that I'm going to watch and sitting around twiddling my thumbs. What am I going to do today? And this is something that was very profound during my near-death experience. Um, During my near-death experience, if anybody's interested and they want to see the full share that I did, it can easily be found. I don't know how to do links and sharing and all that stuff in my own. I'm not tech savvy at all. Um, but the title of the share is Scott's NDE near death experience, and it can easily be found on All to Love, MJ Robertson. Um, and there was one point in that exchange that we had, that interview, that share that we did, where MJ made reference like that there's a wealth of experiences in this one experience, and we only, it was an almost 2 hour interview, and from my perspective, she was absolutely right when she said that there's a wealth of experiences in that one experience, and we scratched the surface, but it was it would have been very easy for me to go off on tangents about one specific aspect, and the one that was really, it was profound. It was there was a lot of wonderful information that came through to me in my near death experience, but um, after what I can describe as my life review, um, there was a guide, there was a presence that was with me, guiding me through this near death experience, um, and after my near death after my life review, it was like it was a telepathic question from my guide, like, what do you think? Do you have any questions about what about your life review? Do you have any, it was an open dialogue, but not verbal. It was non-verbal. Um, and within that experience, there was an instantaneous review of my life review, and I was coming from the background that I had growing up. Religion played a huge part of my life, um, primarily Christian-based religion, but from within my own family unit, my immediate family, but extended family as well, there was contradicting sects of religion. For example, there was Catholic, there was Jehovah's Witness, there was Baptist. So it was like wide and varied. I grew up with a wide and varied, depending on what's the flavor of the day and which way is the wind blowing. Which family members am I around? And everybody having their own belief system, and it was profound for me as a child, a teenager, an adult, grown man in adulthood. It always played a part trying to figure out who is God. Who is God, and who's right. Who's right. The Catholics think they're right and everybody else is wrong. The Jehovah's Witnesses think that they're right and everybody else is wrong. The Baptists think that everybody, you see where I'm going with this, that we practice the right religion and everybody else is wrong, you know, and I took great exception with that growing up, and it created a lot of confusion for me as a being on this planet. You know, that at least in theory, from my own opinion, that religion should be something that brings us together, collectively bring us together. And I didn't just stick with the Christian dogmas and from various sects. I branched out. I studied Islam and Sufism, Sikhism, um, Buddhism. I wasn't satisfied in one place. I had a lot of questions, um, and inevitably I saw a lot of contradictions. Contradictions with even with yeah, not only in people, individuals themselves between the different sects, but within a religion itself, there was contradictions. As a young man, very young man, in primary school, grammar school, elementary school, for a brief period, a year, 2 years maybe, I was an altar boy in a Catholic church. And one of the things that really like stood out for me or was an issue for me is the um, within the Ten Commandments, that there should be no idols for the purpose of worship. You know, um, and here I am as an altar boy in a Catholic church as a little kid, and having that in the back of my mind, and here I am, I'm kneeling, I'm paying homage to a a wooden statue, a plaster statue of Jesus, Mary, Joseph, stained glass windows, and I'm kneeling. It didn't feel right. It seemed to contradict its own self. Um, but I don't want, again, I don't want to, I'm not picking on any religion. I believe that there is value in the lessons that so many religions provide. But this leads to the religious aspect of my near death experience. Many people that have shared their near death experiences, they have an encounter with Jesus or a saint, or there's many stories of that, um, uh, et cetera, et cetera. And that was not my experience. Going back to that moment after my life review, and my guide kind of, asking me, like, do you have any questions? Yeah, it was an open dialogue. And I remember it was just like the thought of one word. I was not in physical form. I was in an ethereal, spiritual form. And I remember vividly just one word. And I said, religion? Like, where did religion fit into my life? Because I hadn't seen anything, I hadn't experienced anything in my life review that reflected the vast amount of time that I had spent devoted to religion, either practicing it, researching it, um, investigating it, and there was almost a humorous yet very compassionate and loving emotional response from this guide. And the way they answered me was not with telepathy, but a revealing of these two very distinct images. And the two images the first one that came through, and it was very vivid, it was a refrigerator with a child's cartoon crayon drawing on it. Everything, it was a beautiful, lovely little picture, but it lacked scope. It lacked dimension. It was a lovely, beautiful picture, but there was no depth to it. It wasn't. It was a caricature. It was a one-dimensional house. There was a one-dimensional tree. There was a happy, smiley face sun, little puffy white clouds. But it was a child's drawing, from a child's perspective, a child's understanding of a wonderful, beautiful picture, yet not accurate. And that was profound to me. It was profound that my perception, our collective perception about what we think about religion, it's a nice thought, it's a lovely image, but it lacks, religion lacks depth and substance, in this earthly realm. It lacks the understanding that it's so much broader, wider, deeper, expansive than a one-dimensional drawing and our perception about it. And the other image that I was shown, and I don't know if this resonates with anybody else, but I remember as a young boy, um, in the playground at school, playing with my classmates, in particular other boys, and we would inevitably at one point or another get into an argument about who had the better, the cooler dad, the stronger dad, the my dad can kick your dad's butt, and having a fight with a classmate about whose dad was cooler, like my dad's strong, your dad, whatever, and it was like this childhood game, like fighting over whose father, whose God is the right God, whose God is more powerful, and it was very profound. It wasn't what I was sensing or feeling from that is how we again, going back to what I kind of mentioned earlier, the Catholic thinks they're right, the Jehovah's Witness thinks they're right, the Baptist thinks they're right, the Muslim thinks they're right, the Buddhist thinks they're right, and everybody else is wrong, somehow. My dad, my God, the God I believe in, the God I worship, is cooler than your God, and it's like those two kids in the playground fighting and arguing over who's right. It kind of makes me think of, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? But that's just a little tidbit, and I have no harsh feelings toward, any religion in general or anyone's specific religion. I tend to, what I've come away from this experience, and even prior to it, but this experience really anchored it in for me, was the golden rule: do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. You want to be treated with compassion and love and kindness, tenderness, understanding, um, especially when we're misusing our free will, and we hurt somebody, and understanding that we're all trying our best, and that you know, you know, yeah. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it. Fairly quick, share today, but as time goes on, and I don't know on a daily basis. There's so many times when after this near death experience, I don't want to spoil anybody else's experience. I don't. It's like going to a movie and somebody's giving you spoilers. But if I'll wrap it up with this, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. I grew up believing, in one of the dogmatic religions that I engaged with, There's a quote in Ecclesiastes that makes reference to, as for the dead, they are conscious of nothing. And if memory serves, this is Solomon, King Solomon, wise King Solomon, who participated in writing Ecclesiastes. And as for the dead, they are conscious of nothing. That was not my experience. That was not my experience. I was quite conscious. I was conscious of the events going on in my near-death experience, in my life review, in the places, the ethereal places that I traveled to, that are actually right here with us, and it's amazing. But after looking into that, as for the dead, they are conscious of nothing. King Solomon was a human. He was here on this earthly realm, and from a human's standpoint, when someone dies, they are lifeless. Their eyes don't blink, they're not breathing, they are conscious. The body, the physical body, is conscious of nothing. And I would tend to agree with that. I was definitely outside of my body in my near-death experience, and I can understand where a, albeit very wise king, Solomon, might have that perception that, look at the body. The body is lifeless and cold. It's not moving. It's conscious of nothing. There are, wide and varied interpretations of that very quote from the Bible, but I know what I experienced. I know what I experienced, and that led me to something else too. When I got out of the hospital, I not knowing, not realizing, not understanding that ethereal near death experience. I didn't know what happened. I honestly believed that that they had given me some drugs that might have had a hallucinogenic effect. And I asked the doctors, I'm like, I didn't tell them why. I just said, was there anything from day one when I checked into the emergency room with chest pain to the day was there any hallucinogenic type drugs that you gave me during this experience, because I was trying to figure out what the heck happened to me. I knew I was having a heart attack. All these things happened. And right down the line, everyone, they're like, no, why? No, we didn't give you anything like that. Why? They wanted to know why. And, and I ticked off the boxes. All right, so if I'm not having a hallucinogenic experience, my near-death experience, from opiates or painkillers or this or that or the other thing, or some drug that they've given me to keep my heart beating, on and on and on. After further investigation, there is a drug there is a chemical in our own brains, and many of us have heard of it, DMT, dimethyltryptamine. And there has been research done in regards to people, but the research has been limited. Many scientists, they don't want to get into, it's like studying aliens. It's like an there's no way they can prove it. They know they can't prove it one way or another. So they tend to shy away from things that can't offer them, hard, steadfast evidence. And DMT is one of those things. But in the limited studies that have been done surrounding DMT, which is a mind and mood altering chemical that occurs naturally in our brain, there is no evidence, no steadfast evidence that DMT is present when somebody clinically dies or biologically dies. I found that fascinating. So if this was not a hallucinogenic experience brought on by medical drugs during my during my cardiac arrest, death, clinical death twice, and this was not brought on. This near death experience was not brought on by DMT. Then what was it? And that's the question. That's the question that many of these people who have investigated, it's like, nope, it wasn't DMT, it wasn't the drugs. These people had a genuine experience. And I know what I experienced, and there's it was beautiful, it was wonderful, it was lovely, and I have, again, repeating myself, there is a fearlessness about death that there is a fearlessness I have now about death that is just, it's not something to be feared, it's something to be embraced. It's like walking through a door. It's like walking through a door. And I'm happy to be here today, share a little bit of this with you. Again, it is my hope that I am not looking to point fingers at religion in general, or anyone's specific religion. This was simply an offering of my own experiences through my near-death experience, and what I saw, what I witnessed, what I experienced, what I felt, what I sensed. So I will leave you with that. I offer you a peace that surpasses your own understanding. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Release yourself from the bondage of fear, and see what wonderful things unfold. I love you very much. Have a wonderful day, and I'm out of here. I'm going to go enjoy this now.